What up, YouTube? It's T-Dub the Chud. I just wanted to talk about an article I read earlier that got me to thinking. It's actually something I've been thinking about for a while because people have asked me. But the article was about Americans and how many or how few of them own U.S. passports. I often get asked by people, first of all, how I afford to travel so much. And I did another video where I explained that. But the second question I get asked a lot is why I travel so much. And it's a really stupid question, actually. That's like asking why does a person go to the movies, or why do they like steak and lobster? Because it's good, it's enjoyable. Anyway, the article I read was from Forbes, and it was saying that last year a grand total of 21.4 million passports were issued in the US. And that's the highest number ever recorded. Now keep in mind, we have a population roughly of 320 million people, the population in the US, and out of that, only 21 million have a passport. Now, I didn't need an article to tell me that, because throughout all my travels in Central America, throughout Latin America period, the Caribbean, wherever, I always run into Canadians and Europeans. I very rarely run into Americans, and when I do, they're always at the resorts or they're on a cruise. Like, cruise ships are their thing, and I'm not knocking cruise ships, I like cruise ships, but you'll very rarely find Americans traveling solo, where you'll see tons of Canadians, tons of Europeans from all over, female travelers traveling solo. You'll see that all the time, but you'll very rarely see an American chick traveling by herself, or even with her boyfriend or in a group. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but Americans are fucking terrified of traveling, and I don't fucking understand that shit. And the article went on to say that most Americans blame their lack of having a passport or their lack of traveling on the fact that they don't have money, or they don't have resources, or they don't have time. So basically it's they're working jobs they hate to buy shit they don't need. And I don't get that, because for me, traveling is more than just taking a vacation. For me, traveling is a hobby. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle. And a lot of people that don't travel the way I do, they don't understand that. It perplexes them because they're not in that mind state. Traveling is my passion. It's my hobby. I have like a list of places I want to visit. I have a list of places I have visited. And for me, traveling goes beyond just getting on a plane or getting on a bus or getting in a car and going somewhere. I'm an immigrant. I did other videos on this. I'm originally from Nicaragua, and I barely got my citizenship in 2010. So for me, traveling is something that at one time I couldn't do. Now, when I was a kid and I lived in Nicaragua, my mom always took me all over the place. I had a passport as a kid, and we would go travel within Nicaragua. We would go to Corn Island, Managua, other parts of the country. But once I got to the United States, obviously my immigration status prevented me from doing that. So I've never taken travel for granted. Once I got my green card, you couldn't stop me, man. I was traveling constantly, and all my fellow immigrant brothers and sisters know what I'm talking about. When you don't have your paperwork, you don't have a green card, or you don't have a US passport, you can't travel. Going to Mexico is a fucking big ordeal. You can't do it. I know so many people who want to travel to visit their family, to visit their friends back home, and they can't. They can't go. And I see Americans that are born here, all they gotta do is apply for the passport and they're good, and they don't. Most of them don't even leave their fucking block. They don't leave the state, they don't leave their city. So they see all these foreign places I'm going to, it's just that to them, foreign. Anyhow, that shit's always perplexed me. And like I'm saying, as a former immigrant, travel has been one of the most important things to me. I've had some of the greatest life experiences, the greatest life lessons while traveling, and I've shared some of the best moments of my life with my wife while traveling, while on trips, while on vacation, whatever you want to call it. I've learned so much as a human being and grown so much as a person. And I think that's why Americans are so ignorant. It's because they don't travel. I'm sorry if this video makes you feel some type of way and you get in your feelings, but that's the truth. They lack worldly knowledge. They don't know how other people live, and it can open your eyes to learn to appreciate the little things. You learn to do a lot with very little. And that's always been the way I've lived. But traveling has opened up my eyes to so much. And having a passport is one of my most important possessions. It might actually be the most important inanimate object I have, because it opens up the whole world to me. And there was a time when I used to sit back and watch my friends or other family members who did have their paperwork, or they were born in the United States, and they would go to Mexico or to the Bahamas or Bermuda or wherever the fuck, to Europe, and I couldn't go. Or even back home to Nicaragua. I was, I'm not gonna say jealous, but my mom went back in the 90s after we had left because of the Civil War. She went back right when the Civil War had ended, and I hadn't been back since I left in 86, just like her. And oh man, it was so fucking depressing and sad to me that I couldn't go. I was happy for her that she got to go back, but man, I would have loved to have been able to go with her and share those experiences and memories, to go back to my country after we had been gone for so long. And I was in high school at the time, but I couldn't go because of my immigration status. And I never forgot that shit. Like year after year, I would see my uncle go, I would see other cousins of mine go, and all I could do was look at the pictures in the video or listen to their stories, and I was happy for them. But on the same note, it sucked that I couldn't fucking go. I had friends that would go to Tijuana for the weekend. I couldn't do that shit. Just shit that people take for granted. Like, Americans take a lot of shit for granted, and their passport is one of them, and it just boggles my mind that they don't travel. And it's not that expensive, man. It really isn't. You just gotta know, like, how to hustle, how to grind. Now with the internet, you can find a fucking place for 10 or 15 bucks if you want. Now, it might not be a 4-star place, and it might not be glamorous, but I've had some of the best experiences of my life in hostels and guest house and those smaller hotels, and just being off the beaten path and backpacking across Latin America. It's just life-changing. You'll have so much fucking fun. I've met some of the coolest people in hostels, in traveling, or just being in towns where me and my wife are the only foreigners, and the locals come over after a while and they're like, hey, what's up with you guys? They're just curious about you. And you learn about them and they learn about you. Just looking at this article, was saying 1 in 10 Americans have never left their home state. They don't even travel in their home state. They don't even travel within the United States. Then it said 54% of Americans have visited 10 or less states. It's pathetic. 32% of Americans don't own or can't remember buying travel luggage. Then it went on to say 40% of Americans have never, ever left the country. And over half of Americans have never owned a passport. Ever. At all. I don't get it. 13% of Americans have never flown in an airplane. But anyway, the article got me to thinking, and like I said, I've been asked this by many people. It's the second question I get asked the most after how do you afford to travel so much? It's why. And people genuinely seem bothered and mystified by that. Me and my wife just don't get that shit. Travelers, you know what I'm talking about. It gets in your blood. That's what the travel bug is, where I'm on a trip and I'm already planning my next one and I can't wait. And when I'm not traveling, I start acting like a crackhead, fiending for that shit. Jonesing for it. I just don't understand, man. You guys really need to fucking get a passport. Start with Mexico, start with Canada, and just, you'll see what I'm talking about. Unless you're just one of those people, you're antisocial, you're not wired right, you're xenophobic, then yeah, travel won't be for you. But for me, it's been one of the greatest blessings. And the moment I got my fucking citizenship, I applied for my passport that day, and I instantly started traveling. And I haven't stopped since, from when I got my green card, actually. And of course, it became easier with my U.S. passport than with my green card. Because with your green card, you can't be gone out of the country longer than 6 months. And when you apply for citizenship, they look at how many times you left the country as a permanent resident, and they can use that against you. So it's trickier to travel with your green card. And as a green card holder, you also have to have your passport from your home country, which in my case was Nicaragua, and luckily I've always maintained my country's passport where I had citizenship initially. Some people don't do that, some people can't do that, so they have to wait till they get the US passport. But anyway, I just wanted to briefly talk about that. Americans really need to start getting out there and traveling. It'll open up your mind to so much shit, and for me, it's not just taking a vacation. It's a way of life. It's not just something I just do once a year and I take off and the whole time I'm there I'm thinking about my job or some shit. No, man, I fucking get my vacation on. I be in vacation mode for real. And I'm about to go on another big trip right now and I'm looking forward to it. And I just came off of one in spring and summer and last winter. And you just can't live to work. You're supposed to work to live, not live to work. Anyway, it's T-Dub. Peace. Let me enjoy the sunset.